Whew. All right, I want to say first and foremost, call halal Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praise to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, man. And it's Officer Yajidai from the SICARRI Dallas camp back at it again with a new thing I'm gonna start doing called Mailbag Mondays, where pretty much I make a basically a quick little comment on the I can show you actually on the community tab for the Dallas channel. Right, I just put like drop some biblical questions you wanted. I had really two statuses on here. One of them was drop the biblical questions you want answered, and the other one was say I'm doing Mailbag Mondays. Drop your questions and I'll answer them. So I'm gonna keep doing this periodically so I can build up a certain amount of questions so I can do another Mailbag Monday. If I have enough to do next week, I'll do it next week. But if not, I'll just keep pushing it back until I get enough questions. And I'm just gonna do that just so I can interact with the subscribers more and actually be a little bit more edifying on questions y'all have instead of y'all just waiting for me to come around to a lesson that y'all been curious about. That way, it allows me to actually study a little bit more on things that I wasn't particularly studied on and just be a little bit more sharper. Like be ready to deal with any type of thing, with any type of question that gets asked of me. Because even in the Bible says be ready to have, let me just get that. That's Peter. I believe that's 3 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 3:15. It says, it's 1 Peter 3 verse 15. It says, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks of you a reason of your hope that is in you with meekness and fear. So your hope is really going into your faith, what you believe in. Be ready to answer for what you believe in. And having y'all put these questions on there is stuff that I don't just think about sometimes. It makes me have to think. It makes me actually have to go and look into these things. I would say, I'm not gonna say I know everything, but there's a good amount of things that I know already. And there's some things that y'all ask me that I don't know. And I want to basically just, it's answer your questions, bro. It's really, it's a twofold thing. That way you get your specific questions answered and I get to be a little bit more studied and actually have to go off on my beaten path of things that I study on. Because I got like a whole list of things that I try to go on every week to try to basically hit this so I can memorize this, hit this so I can memorize this, learn this prophecy, do this, and keep it in repetition. But sometimes I want to get off of that and get into some things that I don't normally think about, just in case somebody asks me on the streets and I don't look foolish. So it really kind of helps everybody. What is that? Antonio and Quadash, man, Thawada, man, Baraka Thumb, man, for our gracious donations, man. But this is the question I got so far. I'm just going to read them, and I'm just going to just answer them. I don't really got a specific order, really. I just wrote down some precepts to go along with some of the questions. I don't really have an order based off of how I did it on the page. The first one was like, is the 144, are they all men? The second one was Christ died on a full moon. The other one was it says what were the names of the prophets, considering the jade, like the letter J basically came into existence a couple hundred years ago. Was another one. What happens to the 2/3 after death? Is gambling a sin? It says, what's the difference between piercings and tattoos as far as like the laws in Leviticus? And it says, is it lawful to cremate an Israelite? What was the other one? There was another one I had to write down because it came in late. Is the land of Israel South Africa? South Africa. I said that like this dude I knew in the world used to call it Africa. South Africa. That's funny. Also, I got something new for y'all coming. I'm gonna start taking some of the SICARRI Dallas old classic videos that are really, really edifying, and then start making them able to be listened to on podcast websites. That way you don't always have to have YouTube open and you don't have to get YouTube Red. Because ain't no point in spending $10 just to have a video open when you already had that technology before y'all put a paywall in front of it. So most people already got like things like Anchor and Spotify and things like that. I'm working on getting those on there. So so that basically you could just listen to it when you're out and about. Just edification on the run, on the go. But let me go ahead and get the first question. What's this one? I'm just gonna shoot. It says, was the 144 all men? Let me read the actual question. Let me see. I think it was in my other one. Let me go back to the main page. Mailbag Mondays. Where was it at? Yeah, right here. Sylvia Walker. She said, I recently seen someone on YouTube teaching and reading out of the Bible, and the gentleman who was an Israelite told an Israelite woman that the 144 was going to be men. He read Revelations 14:4, and that's pretty much the answer, to be honest. Revelations 14:4. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. Because this is one of those things where you can tell by the context and the way words are utilized, you can tell the gender of the people who make up the 144. I'm gonna start at verse 1. It says in 14:1, Revelation 14:1. It says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood at the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000. That's the 144,000. Is that having his father's name written in their foreheads, and I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, which is Yahushua right there. It's talking about Yahushua. And then I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. Verse 4. It said, these are they which are not defiled with women. That right there, I mean, that's really context enough. These are they who wasn't defiled by women. Now, I'm gonna read the next part and make a point. It says, for they are virgins. So it doesn't mean they literally haven't. I'm saying like they haven't had sex. That's not what it's talking about. This is talking about they're not a part of that strange woman, which is sin, and which is the world ultimately. Antinomianism. It makes a reference to that in chapter 2, but this is really going into sin, antinomianism. I'll get a precept for it. This is Proverbs 6 and 20. It says, my son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart and tie them about thy neck. So basically, it's not specifically literal, but it's showing you how strongly you should be standing stiffly for the Lord, for the word, and for Yahweh's name through his law, through keeping his law and having faith in him. Verse 22 is, when thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. And when thou wakest, it shall talk with thee. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Talking about the law. I mean, we always go to this. Proverbs 6 and 23. The commandment, one commandment is a lamp, and the whole law is light. Because really, let me get another precept real fast. We'll come back to this. Because the law is what enlightens our eyes. Psalms 19 verse 7, it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Enlightening the eyes. Even when you see in Hebrew certain words that's translated into light can also mean to teach. This is what teaches us. This is what enlightens our eyes and makes us actually see the world correctly. I say this so many times on the streets. You really don't understand. What was that proverb precept? That was 6 and it's really a passage. Proverbs 6 and 20 through Where's the stop at? 25 is really the point. Now, where is it going back? The commandments and the law is what actually shows us how to deal with. Was that look at my brother? Oh, okay. It shows you how to deal in life the correct way, in the more civil way. It gives you a civil law how to deal with your brother, how to worship your God, how to govern your country. It's true enlightenment. It teaches you things that the world just generally doesn't have and doesn't know inherently. Now, these things, since the Lord loved us, he gave this to basically tell us what transgressions are. He even says that in Galatians, the 3rd chapter. He what was the law added for us for transgressions to know what's going on. He doesn't like when we break these laws. And these are, when we keep these laws, it makes our heart perfect with the Lord. It makes our mind. Let me just get the precept for it, actually. While I'm just saying it, because I'm terrible paraphrasing. It's 8. It's 61. Yeah. This is 1 Kings 8:61. Let your heart, and we know what your heart is, your mind. Is to let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as it is this day. That's what puts our mind on the same wavelength as the Lord. The law does that to us. And when we're like that, we become spiritual. We, just like how Romans chapter 7 says, the law is spiritual. And our fleshly selves is carnality. It wants to do things that are contrary to the Lord, which leads you to that strange woman, which we're going to go back to in Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs 6 and I'm going to read 23 again. It says, for the commandment is a lamp, and the law is life, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life, to keep thee from the evil woman. So what is this? What have we read so far? These laws keep you from the evil woman. This evil woman isn't specifically like a literal woman in this case. It's basically personifying the world, personifying these evil doctrines, personifying the philosophies of this world, the antinomianism of this world, the lawlessness of this world. By keeping these laws keeps you away from that. That's what it's talking about. Those men who aren't defiled by women, because they're redeemed from the earth, because they stood stiffly for the Lord's name, like it says in 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra chapter 2 is a direct parallel to the 144 in Revelation 7. These are the same people who get crowns put upon their head. I'm gonna keep going. It says, I'm gonna read 23 again though. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life, to keep thee from the strange woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange. Wait, I said that wrong. To keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue, flattery of the tongue of the strange woman. Strange woman, lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. And what is that going into? If the worldliness is already personified as a woman, what is that going into? The ways of this world, the lust of this world, the gold of this world, the people trying to go get the bag and stuff like that. They want to get the bag and they'll do anything. They have shirts. You go on City Trends right now. City Trends. You go on City Trends right now. They got shirts that say God over money. I mean, nothing but God over money. They do have something to say that, but they'll say like money over everything. Money over everything, bro. And that's how Jake's mindset is. Like the people who are serving mammon, because you only serve one master. Yahweh says that. And they're serving mammon, that spirit of money. The worldliness of this place, the lust of the flesh, the pride of the eyes is going to fail one day, man, when this place is all burned up. It said, we already went into that 2 classes ago. All this is going to get burned up and it's going to amount to nothing. And people seeking after that are going to die with it. But the people who are going to be redeemed are the same people who the Lord was talking to when he said, come out of her, my people. But let's get that. Did I pass it? Does it come out of her, my people? Was it 4? Yeah. And so I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." That her right there is in reference to Babylon, which is also personified as a woman. Imagine that. Imagine that, right? But when it says come out of her, it doesn't literally mean flee this place, because we're going to be saved from Babylon, like it says in Micah chapter 4. But what it means is flee out of this place, out of your heart. Flee out of the philosophies of America. Your little July what is that? July 1776 isms, man. The way America is set up in the ideologies and the supremacy that it's set up on. The whole Edomite supremacy that they got going on. We got to flee out of that mind state and be a part of the Lord's mind state. Make our hearts or our minds perfect with the Lord. That's what we have to do. And not the same people who are doing that is the 144. These men who hasn't defiled themselves with women, and that women is that strange doctrine. They've came out of the world, that they be not partakers of their sins. Partakers of Babylon's sins, which is really the ultimate destruction. Because the people who are conform themselves with the image of the beast, which is Americanism, Edomite supremacy, all those things. Those people who are, as far as Israelites, who conform themselves to that are going to get put to death right along with the plagues of Babylon. This place has a judgment already. The people who run this place have a judgment already, and our people who want to join unto them spiritually are going to taste of them same plagues. What is this, Raphael? This is a smoke. This is a smoke section, man. This is the edification section, man. You can go to Deacon's page for some smoke right now, bro. I'm not on that. I'm on answering questions and edification. Matter of fact, no, I'll let you make it. Where was we at? Let's go back to Revelation 14. Now, in this, when you see this, as far as like where it says these are they which not defiled. Oh, which were okay. Let me zoom this in, man. I need some glasses. It says these are they which were not defiled with women, which is basically alluding to like not committed, like basically not had sex with. It's showing you how. It's just showing you how basically. It's showing you how would I explain that? Really, almost like a metaphor to let you know who this is talking about and what gender of people it's talking about. That's why he went to that verse, and that's the verse I would go to. Well. Now, also to show that that's talking about men too, it says, these are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. And who's the Lamb? That's Yahweh. Now watch this. Go into Revelation to keep the context going. Revelation 2:26. Let's see. I'm going to start at 25. It says, but that which ye have already, hold fast till I come. What do we have already? The Bible. We got the Gospels. We got the epistles of various prophets in the New Testament. We got the law. We got the prophecies. All that, and that's the things that Yahushua taught. And he says, verse 26, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works. Whose works? The Lamb. Keepeth my works until the end. To him. You see that? To him. That's the people who's following the Lamb whithersoever he goeth in Revelations 14:4. Will I give power over the nations to be a ruler? Who's the rulers in Israel? It is we don't have women or like women rulers like that. We have men rulers. We have kings. We are the rulers. We are the Elohim. That's why it says in Psalms 82, ye are gods. When you go into that word, it's going into a ruler. We are the rulers. The men are the rulers, and we're going to have the power over the nations. Now, knowing that, the another reason why we shouldn't even have to have a breakdown for something like that, we have to understand that the Lord created an order. Let me get these two precepts, and I'll go on to the next question. The Lord created an order already. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. It says, but I will have you know that the head of every man. Now let's look at that head real fast in the Greek. It says metaphorically something supreme, chief, prominent over, master or lord. That's like in a military sense, like how you have people over you. I believe it says it in Peter's where it says, where you see that word submit in the Greek. I think it says in a reference. Matter of fact, let me see this. Like, I think it's, what is that, 1 Peter 4? No, I'll get it after this. I'll get it after this. But it's really going into basically somebody supreme over you or master over you. Now look at this. It says the head of every man, the master or lord over, is Christ. Christ is the master over us. Now it says the head of the woman, whoever's master over the woman is the man. That's the way the Lord set this up. And Paul has to reiterate this to the church of Corinth because they only knew what the Edomites told them. Because these are Israelites who've been conformed to the ideologies. We're Corinthians, we're Greeks, we're X, Y, and Z, everything but the child of God. So now Paul has to reiterate to them. He already in the chapter before that, in chapter 10, he had to tell them that they're Israelites. Then the next chapter, he's saying, okay, now here's the order that the Lord established. Because y'all didn't know this growing up in the law, statutes, and commandments. Y'all didn't know this growing up in the culture of being an Israelite. So let me show you how the order is set. The head of men, us right now, the head of us is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man. I'm gonna keep going. It says, and the head of Christ, even Christ, our master, the men's master, has a head, showing you that there can't even be a Trinity. That cuts the Trinity right there because it talks about them being co-eternal, co-equal. They can't be co-equal if Christ has a head. But the point I wanted to make, because that's a quick slide though. But the point I wanted to make is that there's a hierarchy in the family structure. Like there's the children being at the bottom, then you got women, then you got men, then you got Christ, and then you got the Lord. You got Yahweh up there. That's the order which the Lord has set up. And we know that the 144 is going to be the ruling class. So they can't be that can't be women because our rulers have always been men, and they always will be men. Now, in Genesis chapter 3, the Lord, even in the first book of the Bible, the very beginning, the Lord sets up the structure of how it's going to be as far as men and women. Genesis 3 verse 16, it says, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. That's the order. That's the way and the order which the Lord set up already. So if the 144 is supposed to be the ruling class, this can't be women. That doesn't work. And that goes against our culture just in general, based off of those two precepts we brought up. And the way when you see it in the Bible, how women are subservient anyway. As far as just seeing in history, just history and this, which is also reiterated in Corinthians. Let me see if I can find this real fast though. Peter, I think it's 1 Peter 4. No, what is that? Let me see if I can find that. I want to find that real quick. Oh, it's 3. It's 3. How did I forget that? Yeah, it says this is 1 Peter 3:1. So likewise, you wives be in subjection to your own husbands. Now let's look at that word for subjection in the Greek. So look at this. It's to range under, to be subordinate, to subject, put in subjection, subject oneself, to obey, to submit to one's control, to yield one's admonition or advice, to obey, be subject. And watch this right here. Additional information for outline about biblical usage. It says this word was a Greek military term to arrange troop divisions in a military fashion under the command of a leader. That's how submitted wives are supposed to be to their husbands. I wanted to bring it up because that doesn't get talked about enough. Like that, I found that I was like, damn. But yeah, I hope that answers that question. Thanks for 30 minutes on that question. Let me see. Where we at? What we got next? Let me read this question on here because let me just do that. Where is this one at? Where is this at? I'm gonna find this one real quick. Oh yeah, as Reuben Gad said this, it says, if when Christ died there was a solar eclipse, it would have been a new moon that day. Now, I don't know if that's a question. I mean, you got a question mark after it, but that's not. It's kind of incoherent. But I believe what he's trying to say is during Christ's death, there was a new moon right there. Now, that can't be a new moon there, just based off of when Christ died and knowing how the calendar, I'll say the calendar works off of the moon. And another thing, it doesn't say there's a solar eclipse. Like I'm not, when I say that, I'm not trying to rule that out specifically, but what I'm saying is it doesn't say that. And let me prove that. Because it has that in, I think that's 3 different verses that say that. Matthew 27, verse 45. Yeah, this is one of them. I'm gonna read all 3 of them. It says, now from the 6th hour, that's about noon, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. Now, I mean, that could be a solar eclipse. I don't know. It just says there was darkness. That's one of them. This is Luke 23, verse 44. Same thing. It says, and it was about the 6th hour, noon again, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour, and the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the mist. Now, here's the thing for the Luke situation. If we're going to build the doctrine off of there was a solar eclipse predicated off of Luke, I can't rock with that because Luke wasn't an eyewitness to this. Luke is getting secondhand information. So when you look at the last one, this one is Mark. Then I'll finish up what I'm saying. Mark 15, verse 33. It says, and when the 6th hour was come, noon again, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. The next verse doesn't say that. The only place that says the sun was darkened in Luke. And Luke wasn't an eyewitness to this. So I can't just say that's a solar eclipse based off of that. I can't do that. And it's really kind of irrelevant to me. I just wanted to just bring that up anyway. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know as far as Luke not being an eyewitness to a lot of things. He was receiving a lot of secondhand information. Really, oh yeah, you say it like that. A lot of secondhand information. So I'm not about to build my doctrine off of that. And let's also go into the Bible to see why that doesn't make sense anyway. Because I want to make this point really quickly. In SICARRI chapter 43, verse 7, the same verse people like to use to say the new moon is a full moon, which doesn't make that much sense. I'm gonna read this in course. I'm gonna read this in a few different translations. It says, from the moon, we're able to calculate the feast days, like the Sabbath. Calculate when the feast days are to be observed. It is its light wanes when its course has been completed. So when its course is complete, before its course is complete, the light is diminishing. So after it diminishes, the course, its cycle has been completed. So then it starts a new cycle to let you know when the new moon is. The new moon is when there is no moon, the blank moon. That's the new moon. That's how you know. And I would love for anybody to show me another verse that says otherwise. I would love to see that. I'm gonna read another one. It says, this is the NRSV. I'm going to say it like that. It's in NRSV. It says, from the moon comes the sign of the festival days, a light that wanes when it completes its course. Like I said again, the new moon, when it's complete, after it's completed its course, the light has waned from that to when it's blank again. That's when the new moon is. Now, when we look in the scriptures, the new moon is the first day of the month. It sets day number 1. It sets the Sabbath for the month, and it gives you how you should reckon your calendar, which we already went into last week. Now, I have a graph. Let me get this graph. Let me see if I have this still up. Oh, I still got it. I'm gonna hold this right here for now. Then we're gonna go. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, we're gonna go back. Let me make a point real fast. 1 Samuel 20. Is it 20? I believe it's 20 and 24. All right. Yeah, 1 Samuel 20, verse 24. It says, so Samuel hid himself in the I'm tripping. 1 Samuel 20 and 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. Now, let's skip to verse 27. And it came to pass on the morrow, which is the next day, like tomorrow, on the next day, it says, which was the second day of the month, letting you know what? The new moon is the first day of the month. It sets the days of the month. We didn't have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We had numbered days predicated off when the new moon is. Even in the Hebrew, it says the same thing. Verse 24, you look word for new moon, Kodesh, new moon, month, monthly, first day of the month. Even the Amalekites know this. It's the first day of the month. Now, let's see how Passover is reckoned in Leviticus chapter 23. Now here's my issue why this is kind of like a nonsensical question, is because there's no possible way Christ could have died on the Passover if the Passover is a new moon. A new moon is day number 1, the first day of the month. Now let's read Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5. It says, in the 14th day of the first month, it is the Lord's Passover. So Christ couldn't have died on a new moon. That's impossible, because Passover takes place on the 14th day, which isn't a Sabbath. I'm just throwing that out there. It's not the Sabbath. And I'm going to prove it when I pull up the calendar. But new moon is day number 1. So that can't be. That doesn't work. Now, let's look at this. This is how the lunar Sabbath is reckoned. Now, the new moon comes in. That's day number 1. Now, 6 working days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then here's the Sabbath. Here's Passover on the 14th day, on the preparation day before the Sabbath. And the scriptures say the same thing. Let me get this real quick. This is all I really need. I just want to make a point off of that. And then we can move on. Let me see. Where did I write that down at? Mark 45, 15, 45. Was 1545? Was it 24? 42. Yeah. So this is after Christ died on the cross. He's still on the cross currently. And it says, verse 15, verse 42, it says, and now when even was come, because it was the preparation, which is the 14th, the day before the Sabbath, which starts the feast of unleavened bread. It says, because it was a preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath. Christ died on the Sabbath. He's a sacrificial or paschal lamb, like how people will say. He died on Pesach. He died on the 14th day. So when you look back on the calendar, the 14th day is a full moon. It's the day before a full moon, as far if you go off the lunar phases. So it can't be this. It can't be this, because this only happens here. So he died on the preparation day. He died the 14th day of the month, which of the first month, which is one phase before the 1 little mini day phase before a full moon. So that can't be. So that's pretty much it on that one. What else we got? Is gambling a sin? This one's kind of easy. Now, I want to make another point that a lot of Hebrew Israelites don't ever try to talk about that much. Let me get 2 scriptures. First John. Verse 4. Okay, it's Romans 4, verse 15. It says, because the law worketh wrath or judgment. It says, for where no law is, there is no transgression. So if there's no law saying thou shalt not do this, it's not a sin. Let me say this again. If it doesn't say thou shalt not, it is not a sin. Now, when you look in 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, whosoever committeth sin transgressive also the law, for sin is a transgression of the law. Sin is you breaking a law. If there's no law on a specific topic, it's not a sin. It's not a transgression. Now, I'm not saying do everything. And when I say that, I'm not saying just go ahead and just, it doesn't say thou shalt not on this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just answering the proposed question. There's no transgression as far as gambling. Now, something you have to realize is that we have something called casting lots in various points in the Bible. That's something very, very, very similar to gambling. Just like, and we had some things like very similar to dice, very similar to like we'd say, definitely different various ways of casting lots. It's more or less like, it's like just like we had dice and we just rolled them and say matter of fact, let me just go to the example. Let me just go to an example because you can see that in the New Testament. Acts chapter 1, verse, was it started 15? Where am I going? 15. Yeah. Because they basically had to do it. You could just say, hey, they just did a dice roll to figure out who the next apostle was going to be to replace Judas. And you see that in Acts chapter 1, which we can read. I don't think I need to really break all this down, but I'm going to read it so you can see the context. I was trying to skip around, but I think you need all of it for the context. It says, and in those days, Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples and said, the number of the names together were about 120. It says, men and brethren, the scripture must needs have been fulfilled, which the Holy Ghost by the mouth of David spake before concerning Judas, which was a guide to them that took Jesus, or Yahushua. For he was numbered with us, he was part of the 12, and had obtained part of this ministry. Now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his guts gushed out. That's where he died at, in the field that he purchased with the money he got for selling out Christ. Verse 19, it said, and it was known unto all dwellers at Jerusalem, and so much as that field is called in their proper tongue, Asadama. I think that's how you say it. Let me look at this real quick. Because shout out to my Bible because it has the pronunciations. Let me see. This is Asadama. Let's say it like that. Asadama. That is to say, the field of blood. It says, for it is written in the book of Psalms, let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his bishopric let another take. And bishopric is in reference to an office. Is in reference to an office. This is what I was saying before about how they had to basically cast lots to see who was going to replace Judas, who was going to replace his position in one of the 12. It says, verse 21, it says, therefore, of these men which were accompanied with us all the time, that the Lord Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John unto the same day that he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection. And they appointed two, Joseph, called Barsabbas, who was surnamed Justus, and Matthias, two people. And it says, and they prayed and said, Thou Lord, which knoweth the hearts of all men, show whether of these two thou have chosen. So before they casted their lots, or I mean, they even I said this before, they found ancient dice in Israel, man. She brought that out a while back. But before they casted a lot to see who it's going to fall on, to see who's going to be the person to replace Judas, they came up with two men, and they prayed to the Lord and said, "Show us which one it is." And then what's the next part they said? This is verse 25, that he may take part of this ministry and apostleship from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. Verse 26, and they gave forth their lots. They chunked them dice, man. He asked the Lord, and he blessed it. He said, which one is it? They chunked them dice. It says, and a lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. So that's things we used to do. You see that in various parts of the Bible. It talks about people casting lots. That looks it looks just like how we do gambling, like people shooting craps and stuff, man. You got that phrase called "oh, that and crapped out," man. And Barsabbas crapped out right there, man. He didn't get to be a part of the apostleship. But that's things that we did, and that knowing things like that as far as our culture, and basically, I mean, yeah, you said like that. Just knowing things like that as part of our culture will lead to you not having to ask questions. I'm not saying you're wrong for asking, because people don't know that, but like, it's just things like that. When we focus a little bit more on our history and our culture, things you see in Genesis, things you see Exodus, Chronicles, Kings, things that we did like that, and focusing on and trying to get a little bit a deeper understanding on that, you'll get the stuff like this, and you'll be able to understand. Just like how Christians don't understand the New Testament because they don't spend time trying to understand Hebraic culture, Hebraic idioms, the way Hebrews talk, how flamboyant they talk, and how hyperbolical they talk about certain things. And when Christians pick up the Bible, they just start at Matthew, and they don't understand these things. They don't understand what sin is. You ask them what sin is, they'll tell you it's 20 different things. If I lined up 10 Christians, I'm gonna get 10 different answers about what sin is. I'm gonna get 10 different answers of what Israel is, who Israel are. They don't know any of these things because they didn't spend time to understand the culture, which is set up in what they call the Old Testament. And just think about this, man. This is my Bible. This is my worn up, beat up Bible has been through it for a minute. Like, let me show you something. They're reading this much of the, well, no, because that's some of that. They're reading this much of the Bible, bro. Let me see that much of the Bible. That's the New Testament. You see how little that is compared to this big old chunk? Like, that's more than double. That's more than double. You're cutting all that wise understanding that you get and wisdom that you get, that wisdom that you get from the Old Testament out to just fumble, but like how Mark Sanchez did in New York, but fumble away in the New Testament, man. Y'all wrestle with these scriptures to your own destruction. And you run around talking about the law's done away with. It doesn't matter who Israel is anymore. It's just like this, stuff like that. That's why it's important to, like I said before, dig deep in the culture. I hope that makes sense. Let me see. What's the other one? Let's see. Let me go to this question. Yeah, this guy said, what are the names of the prophets of the Bible, like Joseph, Joshua, Job, since the letter J isn't a part of the Hebrew language? Now, a very easy way and a rudimentary way to find out what they are is to just use the lexicons. That's what I do, because I mean it's quick, it's fast. We don't got to do all this extra stuff. But you could just learn the Paleo, learn the modern Hebrew, learn all these. And I honestly would rather people do that, because just relying on the lexicons alone, you're not going to get the true sense of the Hebrew. You want to actually go into the Paleo, go into the modern Hebrew, just as comparison. So you'll get an understanding of things and understanding how words work in Hebrew. But I'll just show you this quick rudimentary way. I misspelled Joshua. That's something I would do. But let's look at this. Joshua. I want to see. Which one did I do? Let's go to a name like Joshua, which really is like Yahushua. Like you got the Yahushua right here. It goes from right to left. And I only know that from basically going into the Hebrew, trying to figure out a little bit of the modern and more of the paleo. So this is a quick rudimentary way to find out. I even got the pronunciations in the modern, whether it be like this, like Yeshua, which really goes back to Yahushua because there's no E, there's no O in Hebrew. There's translations for that, which comes out to be Yahushua. That's a quick rudimentary way of doing it. And just like this name, how it's composed, like Yahushua is composed with like Yahweh or Jehovah right here. I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me see. Like this. This is where you get Jehovah or Yahweh. And this is going into save, savior, deliverer. Yahweh saves. Yahweh is salvation. That's quick, easy way to figure that out. It don't got to be something so super difficult, but I would recommend everybody to go in and look at the paleo and look at the modern Hebrew, because they got different graphs. You can just Google it. They got different graphs that actually could do comparative characters. Like it'll line up the characters in the paleo to go with the modern, and then all you gotta do is learn a pronunciation for the paleo, line them up with the modern, and you can basically do it that way. It's just more studying, to be honest. It's more studying. But this is a quick, easy, and rudimentary way to do it without having to do a whole bunch of extra stuff. Let me see. This one says, is our land South Africa? The land of Israel, South Africa. Now, I really would only ever use one verse for this, and it's Genesis 15, verse 18. Right here, Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, it says, in the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed, who's Abraham's seed? Who's the children of the promise? That's Romans chapter 9. Who's the children of the promise? Israel. Just like it says in verse 4. We are the children of the promise. So this is the seed who Abraham's land is promised to. Now it's going to tell you exactly where Abraham's land is. It's unto thy seed have I given this land from the river of Egypt, like the Nile River, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. That's where our land is, between the Nile River and the Euphrates. And here's a graph right here I pulled up before we even got here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. This is where our land is. Now, the people over there calling themselves Israelites just got this. This is what they got. This little sliver. But all of this is us right here, man. That's the land of Israel. You can go on the map right now. Anybody want to just Google? All I typed in is from the Nile to the Nile River to the Euphrates River. People already know about this already because it's Genesis. It's Genesis chapter 15. We should already know this. But this is where our land is, not just South Africa. This honestly is more northeastern Africa, because that's right here. This is like northeastern Africa right here, I believe. This is Egypt. Yeah, that's about northeastern Africa. Matter of fact, let me just check on that before I start just lying, because I'll be forgetting. Let's see. Let's just say Africa. Yeah, it's about right there. It's about right there. Yeah, that's where our land is. Just that's a quick verse that I go to. Honestly, that's the only one you really need, because that's the promised land. That's the land that's actually promised to us that hasn't even been fully given unto us already. Because when you see the land allotments, they didn't occupy that whole area. We didn't have that. The promise is going to be fully fulfilled when we're actually brought into our land through Christ. When he's that prince over us, when he's that Davidic Messiah that brings us from over here from Babylon all the way to over there, and then that will be fully fulfilled. That's where our land is, and nowhere else until then. So I hope that answers that question. That's not really too deep. What's the next one? I think it said, "What's the difference between cuttings and flesh?" Yeah, right here. It says, "What's the difference between piercings and tattoos? Don't they both cut the skin?" Now, when you look at the passages that talk about making cuttings in your flesh, he's forbidding it for a specific purpose. Because what people used to do is to do things like tattoos. They'd make cuttings in their flesh for a purpose and for an intent. And I'm gonna go into it instead of just talking about it. I don't want to overtalk it. It's Leviticus. What was that? What did I write down? 19, verse 28. Yeah, it says, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead." Make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, just like how people like get tattoos for their sons and daughters who died or their friends who died. And they get a whole picture just plastered on them. It says, "Nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh." That's you. We can see that today, man. I'm just saying, that's exactly what that is. People just cutting marks in themselves for the dead, making cuttings in their flesh and incisions for a purpose to give reverence to a person who died. And the other one, Leviticus 21:5. It says, "They shall not make baldness upon their heads, neither shall they shave off the corner of their beard, nor make any cuttings in their flesh." And you see that word for cuttings in your flesh, that's going into an incision. Because it says it. Watch this. Right. And when I say that, I'm not just saying it's just limited to tattoos, because it says it. Don't make cuttings in your flesh. But what I'm saying is, when you look at the one he's quoting, as far as like Leviticus chapter 19, it's that one specifically making reference to tattoos, and the other one's talking about making incisions in your flesh. Now, when you look at that word for cuttings, it's the same thing as the other verse. It says the incisions and cut. Now, when you look at and Google the word incision, let me see if I still have it right here. Incision is like a surgical cut made in the flesh, a mark or decoration cut into a surface. You have full intent to cut something or cut your body for a purpose. For a purpose. That's what that's going into. Don't just be cutting into your skin and making an incision to your skin for a purpose, just like how people do tattoos. Don't just be cutting your flesh in general, but also don't just be doing it to freaking get a damn tattoo, man. like come on. The only reason why I'm getting a little live on that topic, because it's like I've talked to my parents and like my family about that, and then they'll read that, be the most avid Christians ever, say, "I raised you up into the Bible and stuff like that." But then you'll hear a verse like this and say, "Well, I'm still gonna get a tattoo." We talked about that on Deacon's chat the other day, not the chat, the video. Like, it don't matter how much you tell these people, they're still gonna do whatever they want to do, man, because that's just who they are. That's what people are accustomed to. They like, if the Lord ain't chose them to bring them out of this world, it don't matter how many times you beat them over the head with the Bible, they're still gonna run away from it and do what they want to do and please the flesh until their own destruction. Some of them will even lie on the Bible and say, "Well, see, Paul said we don't got to do this no more." So now Paul's overriding Christ. But that's a whole nother tangent. But this is really going into making, like, you shouldn't just cut into your flesh just to do that, and you shouldn't be getting tattoos. Now, when you deal with piercings and the earrings was a part of our custom. That was more or less like, put something in your ear as far as like an actual earring, not to just cut inside and not to just cut flesh off to freaking lacerate your flesh for a decorative purpose or just willy-nilly. Earrings is just something we had as far as something like an ornament unto us to make us look good. Men did it, women did it. And when I can show you certain instances in the Bible to where we did it. This is Exodus 32 and 2. It says, and Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and your sons and your daughters, and bring them unto me. Now, he was going to do something wicked with this. That's the context. He was about to do something wicked with this. But the point I wanted to make is we already had earrings. We were already rocking earrings, whether it was our children, whether it was the men, whether it was the women. And this ain't the only verse. Let me get another one. This is Ezekiel 16. I'm going to start at 1 and then I'm going to jump around. So I'm going to make a point. This is the Lord saying he's going to do this right here. This is Ezekiel 16 verse 1. It says, again, the word of the Lord came to me saying. So what he's saying after this is the word of the Lord. Now I'm about to jump down. I'm going to start at verse 9. It says, then washed I thee with water, and I thoroughly washed away the blood from thee, and I anointed thee with oil. I clothed thee also with broidered work, and shod thee with badger skin, and I girded thee about with fine linen, and I covered thee with silk. Who's that I right there? That's talking about the Lord. The Lord's doing all this. Watch this. I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put bracelets upon thy neck, and a chain about thy neck. I put a jewel on thy forehead, and earrings in thine ears, and a beautiful crown upon thy head. This is all the things that the Lord did to beautify us. All those things that named from 1 all the way down to this point is the things he beautified us with. And one of those things was earrings. That was part of our culture. We had earrings. That's not talking about making lacerations in your flesh, whether it be just to do it or for the dead. These are just things we did as an ornament to make us look better. The Lord did this for us. He gave us this, and we was already doing that in Exodus chapter 32, right before we did something wicked. But let me get one more just to seal the deal on that. Isaiah 3 and verse 16. It says, moreover, Yahweh saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. That's where the southern kingdom women have a harder time growing hair. And it says, and Yahweh will discover the secret parts. Let me just jump to the point. Verse 19. It says, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers and the bonnets. It's all naming stuff that our women had on them. Bonnets and the ornaments of the legs and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings, the things the Lord gave us to beautify us, namely our women in this case, the rings and the nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel and mantles. It's naming all the things that the Lord gave us to beautify us through following him. Now, in Isaiah 3, it's talking about since our women were going off, the Lord took all those things away. All those things the Lord gave us to beautify us, whether it be man or woman, because of our transgression. We went in captivity, and the Lord took all those things to beautify us away. All those slight things we had, the things that made our women look beautiful, he took all that away. But one of those things they had was earrings. That's part of our culture. You can type in the word earrings in the Blue Letter Bible or any Bible app where you can search in, and it will show you plenty of times where Israelites wore earrings. Now, we know that the Lord, I'll say this too, if the Lord gave us these things, we know Christ isn't the minister of sin, nor does the Lord give anybody license to sin. Now, if having piercings is as far as earrings are related, as far as this question, if that's going off, the Lord will never say it's okay for us to go off. And he would never allow us to have something on us that's going off if he gave it to us. Like, he wouldn't tell us he wouldn't just give us pork to eat. Like, that's not what he's doing. And in that same aspect, if earrings was going off, he's not about to just give that to us. The Lord never gave any man no license to sin. So it's okay for us to have earrings. But to make lacerations in your skin just a cut, just because, or tattoos is off. There's a clear difference as far as a culture and clear difference as far as a pericope or context in the way cutting your flesh is used. So that's the difference. I hope that makes sense. Next question. What we got? We're 6 deep. I got 2 more. This one's really quick. So somebody asked, is it okay or is it lawful to cremate somebody? Now, like I said before in Romans chapter 4, where there's no law, there's no transgression. But I will say this, though. In our culture, we used to bury people. We used to bury people in caves, and we used to bury people in sepulchers. A sepulcher is like it says right here, a small room or monument cut in rock or built of stone in which a dead person is laid or buried. Just like either a small room, like a small little, like, you go to like a cemetery, you have them super elaborate looking house looking things, and some of them, that's a sepulcher. We used to bury our people in that. David was buried in one of those. That's an act. Let me get this next. What was it? Acts 2. Acts 2 and 29. Acts 2 verse 29. It says, men and brethren, let me speak freely unto you of the patriarch David, that is both dead and buried. He's buried, and his sepulcher is with us unto this day. That little small house looking room thing, David was buried in that, and they can see that. That's something we used to do. That's something that we did in our culture. Now, another thing was burying in caves and burying in plots of land. And I'll show that in 3 different instances. Genesis 23, verse 19 through 20. And it says, and after this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. That's one instance of somebody buried in a plot of land that he bought. As a matter of fact, it says that in the field, and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. He purchased that land so he could have a burial place to bury himself, have himself be buried there, and for his wife or wives. Sarah was buried there. That's an example of us burying people in a cave or burying people in a plot of land that we own. This is Genesis 25, verse 10. It says, the field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Heth, there was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife. You see, it's an ongoing thing. It's a repetitive cycle. We bury our people. We don't cremate. That's how we did anything. That's how we operated as far as our culture. Let me see. I said on that. Let me get the next one. Genesis 49, 31. It says, there they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob both followed the same tradition as far as burying their loved ones in this place that Abraham purchased. That's what we used to do. That's our culture. We bury people. We don't cremate people. We're not we're not the Nords, man. Like how they put they wrap their dead person up on some highly flammable paper, put it on a freaking ship, and then push the ship off, and then like take some flaming arrows, just some freaking Assassin's Creed Valhalla stuff, and just shoot flaming arrows into it so they ride off in the sunset on fire. We didn't do that, man. That's the Edomites. that's straight etymology. But yeah, let's see. The last question. This one, I like this question. This is basically what happens to the 2/3 after death. Now, you have certain people speculate as far as like, oh, they just cease to exist. Now, the Bible takes a lot of exceptions to that, which we're going to go into. This is Zechariah. Let's start at the beginning. Zechariah chapter 13, verse 8. Because some people don't know about the two-thirds prophecy. Now, this is Zechariah 13, verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. Now, that 1/3, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, that 2/3 dying is the etymology. Yeah, I mean you add ology to the end of something. That's a study of it, right? That's the study of Edomites, man. Etymology, man. But the 2/3 who are going to cut off and die are the sinners of our people. That's who's going to die in his end time. The 2/3, but the 1/3 is going to be saved and brought through the fire. That's what the next verse is going into. Now, there's speculation of people or of Israelites saying that, oh, they're just going to cease to exist forever. But what's going to end up happening is they're going to be regenerated through the kingdom, but they have to taste of that death. Now, the reason why I say this, the reason why I say that they're going to be in the kingdom and they're going to be regenerated after that death is because the Lord already promised Abraham something. The Lord already promised that we have a great nation. We'd occupy this land. We'll be saved from our enemies. The Lord promised all that to Abraham. Now, the law, matter of fact, let's just go to that real fast. Genesis 12. It says, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. I will make of thee a great nation. We know that's Israel. And I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And said, I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and all the families, and in thee, all the families of the earth. Wait a minute. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Now, I've already gone through this in plenty of lessons. All the nations are going to be blessed when Israel finally gets this promise and are put into our land, and then we're the hegemony of the earth. When we're ruling, there's not going to be any type of freaking wars anymore. You see that in Isaiah 2 and Micah 4. There's not going to be wars anymore. People are going to come and learn righteousness. That's how all the nations of the world is going to be blessed. Blessed is going into being well off or better off in that situation. And the world's going to be way better off when we're in rulership compared to when the Edomites are in rulership, forcing all of our people to study etymology. You know, I'm just going to start referring to the image of the beast as etymology, man. But yeah, getting all our people into etymology. But what was I talking about as far as that? Oh yeah, when the nations of the world are going to be blessed when we're in power and there's world peace, and they're going to come seek righteousness. This hasn't happened yet. All the stuff as far as us getting the land in totality, us being that great nation, us being saved from our enemies, hasn't happened yet. Look at this. This is verse 7 too, and it says, yeah. It says, and the Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. We haven't got that in totality. We haven't occupied the Nile from the Euphrates and had straight ownership of that. That's also how you know those people over there ain't Israelites. But we will occupy this land when we get this promise fulfilled. Now, here's the thing. This promise was made by the Lord before the law was made. This is a promise that he made. And he made this to all the descendants as far as who it applies to, the Israelites. He made he made this promise to apply for all of Israel. So all of Israel has to take part in this promise. The law, them keeping the law or not keeping the law, can't negate from them obtaining the promise. Paul even says the same thing in Galatians chapter 3. This is Galatians 3 and verse 16. And it says, now to Abraham and his seed, us, were the promises made. He saith not to seeds and as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ. And this I say, that the covenant that confirmed before of God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years, cannot wait. Why am I saying I'm tripping my reading today? Let me read this again. But the King's English be getting me too. It says, and this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. So he said, damn clean water. But yeah, the us breaking the law cannot stop us from obtaining the promise, nor can we get the promise through just solely just keeping the law. But the law, the point I want to make, and the same point Paul was trying to make here, is the law can't stop us from obtaining the promise. The promise was all made to Israel, so all of us have to obtain this promise. But there has to be a judgment on those people who don't want to listen to the Lord. Both of these things have to be true at the exact same time. These people have to know death by pain, and then after they know their death by pain, then they're gonna. Matter of fact, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna break it all the way down. I'm gonna read verse 18. It says, "For if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more of promise." It's no more promise. Promise what? The oath that he made unto Abraham. That's not a promise if we have to do all these things, to get it. It's owed to us at that point. But he made the promise, and the promise has to be for Israel, and it has to be obtained. It has to be obtained through the Lord doing this, Lord fulfilling that promise, and not as far as the obligation of us keeping the law. Now, the thing is this. Second Ezra chapter 9 verse 7. Let me see if I can get the. That's not what I want. Oh, that's what I want. Okay, yeah. This is almost 7. I want to get to the point because I kind of want to move on. Second Ezra 9 verse. I started 9. It says, "Then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torments." Verse 10, "For such as in their life have received benefits and have not known me." How you know the Lord? By keeping his commandments. "And they that have loathed my law, hated my law, while they yet had liberty," grace, or in that time period of grace right now to actually keep the law, statutes, commandments, and get right before it's time. "And when as yet place of repentance was open unto him," like I was saying, understood not, but despised it. The same must know it after death by pain." If they're not going to come back, how are they going to know it after death by pain? They have to know they have to get that butt whooping. And that butt whooping is that thermonuclear destruction, that famine, them pestilences, that death. They have to know it by that. That's why you see, and this is how they're going to know it, right? This is exactly how they're going to know it. Let me just start in context. This is Matthew 5, verse 17. "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever," here's the key point, "whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven." If they're not going to be in the kingdom, how are they going to be least in the kingdom of heaven? And what does that least mean? That's a question I propose to people who say that 2/3 are going to just die and that's going to be it for them. No, they have to know why they have to know why they died, because they didn't want to keep the law. They want to spit on the prophets and cuss us out and do stuff like that. They know they death. They know what they did was worthy of death, come back and realize they least in the kingdom. You just a regular Israelite. The people who teach these commandments, matter of fact, it says it. It says, verily I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Ye have ye have heard. Where's the do and teach them? At least in the kingdom of heaven. Oh yeah, it's the same verse. But whosoever shall do and teach them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? That means they were the ones who were the ones that the Lord preserved and saved out of Babylon and brought into our land. They didn't have to know death by pain. They didn't have to worry about all that because they did what they were supposed to do. Yes, you're going to get justified in the very end, but you even though you were 2/3, you're going to get justified in the very end after you come back, after you know death by pain. You don't want to know that death by pain because it's not a good type of death. You see it illustrated in Revelation 20. You see it illustrated in Amos chapter 9 by the sinners, by people dying by the sword. You see it in 2nd Ezra. You see the people born in vain. All that is the people who's gonna know that they messed up by getting put to death for not listening to the law, statutes, commandments, and transgressing the laws of God. That's why it says in Galatians chapter 3, what was the law? If we're not going to get into this, what was the law made for? For transgressions, to let you know what's going off, to let you know what offends the Lord. And if you don't care what offends the Lord and you do what you want to do, you're going to be called least in the kingdom of heaven. You're gonna know what you did was wrong. But since you were a descendant of Abraham, all the way to from the patriarch Jacob, and you were a child of the promise, you still have to obtain the promise, or you will be making God a liar. You honestly will be making God a liar by saying the 2/3 aren't going to obtain the promise because he promises to his seed. Are they not the seed of Abraham? So that's why. And matter of fact, no. Let me stay on topic. The reason why I say they're going to be reborn in the kingdom outside of these scriptures, you see in Ezekiel chapter 37. 37 and where do I want to start at? 37 verse 25. Ezekiel 37 verse 25, and they shall dwell in the land. I'm just Ezekiel 37 verse 25, and they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, which is from now to Euphrates. It says, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, the children that we have. And who's going to be the children we have? Them 2/3. It says, and their children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, because then when we get there, we're going to get brought under the covenant, brought under the rod of the covenant, which you see in Ezekiel chapter 20. We don't have to get it, but you can always go back there and look. Moreover, I'll make a covenant of peace with them, an agreement of peace with us. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them. He's going to multiply us. And how is he going to multiply us? He's not about to clone us. We're about to have children. And who are those children? The people who didn't make it on the first round. The people who are going to be the least in the kingdom. And by least, they're still, even the Israelite who's going to be the least is still going to be greater than the rest of the nations. Don't get me wrong when I say that. They're still going to be greater than the Edomites, all these other nations. They're still going to be one of us and everything. But they're the people who had to make it on the second round. That's the people. That's the people who come from us. Who basically. How would I say that? How would I say it? What would be a better way to say that? The freaking end products of us having children. They just say it like that. The end products of us having children. That's them. The people who are going to be least in the kingdom. It says, I will set my sanctuary with them in the midst of them forever. And it says, my tabernacle shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel when I set when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forever. Now he's going to sanctify us. Now, when you see us being sanctified, that's the fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 45 and 20 and 25. 25. Yeah, it's Isaiah 45 verse 25. In Yahweh shall all the seed of Israel be justified and shall glory. Now, if the 2/3 are going to die and be put off forever, is all the seed of Israel going to be justified at that point? No, they're not. But when they come back through the regeneration through our children, and when I say that, I'm not trying to just number myself part of that number, but I'm just saying that just for context sake. Our children, that's the people who are going to be born of us. They're going to go through the rod of covenant, and they're going to have the new covenant on them, and then they're going to be justified after they know that death by pain. That's what this is going into. So just like how Paul talks about in Romans 11, verse 26, how all Israel must be saved. All Israel has to be saved. And that salvation comes through the fulfillment of the Abrahamic promise. And that's why Christ came. Let me get that. I ended up on that because that's pretty much it. Yeah, this is Luke chapter 1, verse 68. It says, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. He has raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David." We know that's Christ. And it says, "As he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began." Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, all his prophets have prophesied about the restoration of Israel and the messianic figure that is to come. It says that we should be saved from our enemies. All Israel is going to be saved from their enemies when the 1/3 that's already over there, they're already going to be saved from their enemies, but their children are going to be saved from their enemies, and their children are the 2/3 that died on the first go around. When they come back, they're going to be saved from their enemies because the evil beast, like it says in Ezekiel chapter 34, which is a reference to the other nations, are going to be casted out. Then no more shall we be a prey for them, a prey to them. No more shall we be a prey to them. So that's how they're going to be saved to their enemies. That's how all Israel is going to be justified and saved, like it says in Isaiah 45 and Romans chapter 11, verse 26. Is that we should be, I'm going to keep going in verse 71, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. And another way that's going to happen too is because the sanctuary of God is going to be set in the midst of us, and he's not going to allow that to happen to us. Verse 72, and it says, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he swore to our father Abraham. That's the fulfillment of the promise. When all of Israel is saved, that 1/3 is brought back into the land. We have children, the 2/3 come back around, and then once they're all back, the whole seed of Israel shall be justified. We should be safe from our enemies, and that's the mercy that's promised to our forefathers through the oath which he swore to Abraham. Verse 74, that he will grant unto us that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear. And why won't we have to fear? Because we have the new covenant. Then we don't have the new covenant now. We'll have the new covenant then when we have the Spirit put upon us to where we can't transgress the laws of God no more. The law is going to be in our inward part. That meaning that we don't have the ability to break them any longer. That's that covenant of peace that he established with us, to where basically the word basically we won't be able to transgress the laws of God no more. Deuteronomy 28 verse 15 through 68 can't happen anymore. That's done with. I'm not saying like the law is done with, but I mean like we won't be able to, that you won't see that happening anymore. We'll only get Deuteronomy 28 and 1 through 14, the blessings. That's why we have a covenant of peace. It says in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. And that's pretty much it on that. But that's pretty much all the questions. There was 8 of them. I went through all of them. You can see them. They're all in the community chat. I'm about to, right after I end this live, I'm about to put another one up there for next Monday. And if I get enough questions, I'll do that again. I'll do this again and answer questions back to back to back like this. I like that because it keeps me studying. I really do love that, to be honest. And with that, I want to say Call Halal Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai and say Shalom. And until next time, man.